Welcome back to the Turn the Music podcast. This is episode 28. We are on measure 6 of The Spirit of Music by Victor Wooten. And to discuss the book, we have CJ. How are you this evening, sir?
Doing all right. A little overtired, but I'm doing all right. A little punchy.
Well, that's good, I guess.
I'll make things interesting.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
I'm all right. Surviving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has it already been a week at work and it's only been 3 days?
It's been several weeks. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm tired of dumb people, is what it comes down to.
That's
getting... So, yeah, here's the story from yesterday. Why not?
Why not?
So, as you know, I do work for the government, and one of the things we have to do, so we have certain software that we're allowed to use and certain software that we're not allowed to use. Actually, that's not true. We only have certain software that's approved. So, and then when we get rid of laptops, we have to destroy the hard drives or erase them. So the software that we use to erase the hard drives is no longer certified because someone didn't renew it.
Okay.
So I have 104 laptops that I'm trying to decommission that I can't because I can't erase the hard drives. Now, some of them I can pull the hard drives out and we have a hard drive like shredder and we can destroy them. But I've got like 60 tablets that have like soldered on boards that I can't do anything with because someone didn't go through and renew the certification for the software.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What do you do with those laptops? Do they get recycled or do you sell them out?
So the government's allowed to like donate them to other government agencies.
Okay.
So if they're still usable, that's what they do. If they're not usable, they just recycle them as waste.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But they can't have hard drives in them, or the hard drives have to be erased specially so that no one can go back and find the data.
And you can't do you can remove the hard drives, but you can't erase them.
Correct.
That sounds like a fun predicament to be in.
Yeah. And what kills me is it took me 6 months just to get to the point where I could like start figuring out what the process was. And now that I figured out what the process was, I can't do it. It's like,
can they get it? Can they get it certified again? Or
so that's the thing. Like the certification process can take up to 18 months.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I don't know if someone started the certification process too late or whether we're starting from scratch. No one can tell me that yet.
So a renewal of it is going to be different than having to redo it.
Potentially.
Right. Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
On that note, what are you listening to get through the week?
Sarah Bareilles still.
Mm-hmm.
That's been mostly Sarah Bareilles. I really like that. What's the name of the album? I can't think of it. It's Brave and something. It's the one live from the Playhouse in Atlanta. I'd open up Rune, but Rune decided to not work for me this evening. So hang on.
And all those that are watching this on YouTube, I've disappeared on the screen.
Oh, look at that. Sorry, he'll be right back. I forgot about that.
We're still working out kinks with
Brave
Google
Enough is
Meets
the name
and
of the
Zoom
album.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Brave Enough?
Brave Enough. It's just her. It's her and a piano and a guitar. So it's just her.
It's not live.
It is live.
Oh, it is live.
Yes.
Is that the one that we've played before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one that's got Goodbye Yellow Brick Road at the very end.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great album. That is
Sitting
a very
on the
good
dock
album.
of the bay. Good album.
Yeah.
So that and podcasts. So that's about it. What about you?
Yeah. Actually, I've been getting into audiobooks again. So I've kind of I did a Ready Player One, like we talked about. Mm-hmm. Ready Player Two is done. And the author that wrote those two wrote a book called Armada, which is about an alien invasion, but it still has to do with video games. It's a very, very interesting concept it's basically conspiracy theory as to why there's video games and that the government has control over the video games.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. And I, again, Will Wheaton reads it, so I like the way he does it. So I started listening to that.
Cool.
So I've kind of been doing more audiobooks lately. Not that I'm not listening to music. It's just that in the car, I can knock out 45 minutes one way on an audiobook. So this book will be done in a week or so.
Nice.
So and because work's been a little not slow in the sense that I'm doing things, but not things that like I can't listen to music to into my headphones while I'm doing it. So I've actually been listening to the audiobook. So,
Gotcha.
yeah. But otherwise that's it.
Good.
I actually do have so this before this episode came out, we did the past actually this past Sunday is going to be Tripnotics from Victor Wooten, but the 2 Sundays before that we did his Sword and Stone and his Words and Tones.
Yep.
And I kind of have those 2 lined up that I want to listen to because I don't think I've listened to those enough.
Gotcha.
Yet. That's the next thing for me.
Nice.
Yeah. But that's it outside of that. And a lot of Cyndi Lauper because my son's just completely addicted to, and some Disney music. And I catch myself singing these songs like in the car driving by myself because they get because they're catchy and they get in your head, and and I'm singing theme songs. I'm like, what? Oh, theme songs. He was just watching Doc McStuffins, and I'm sitting there singing the theme song as the theme's going on. And my wife just goes like this. She just looks at me with like the side eye. She's like, what are you doing?
Oh boy.
Yeah. That could be worse.
Yeah, could be.
Could be a lot worse. So the book.
So we are on measure 6, entitled Opposites Attract. And the tagline is, I no longer believed him. I knew he was right. And I'll be honest, I read this last week and I forgot what I read.
So here's the thing. I try to read through it. Not read through it, but like I do the underlining for it like a couple days before we record because I know I need to keep it fresh in my head.
Yep.
This is like we're getting the history of Ollie.
Yes.
Of where he comes from and why he feels the way he feels. So there's not a lot of like there's some philosophical stuff in here, but it's a lot of background of the character to understand where Ollie comes from. Do you want me to? Where do you come in with some stuff so we can see?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Like I have a couple of things highlighted in the beginning, but nothing that like is those one-liners that we talk about and kind of dissect.
It looks like page 97 is where I start.
Okay, so let's get some background on this.
So last week they pulled off the side of the road to rest and get to know each other a little bit. They left the radio on in case the radio went off to know that the guys that were chasing them were coming back. And that's kind of where we are. So take it from there.
Right. Well, I think that... Hold on a second. You said 97.
Yep.
Okay, so that gets into more of the stuff. Yeah, we learn about like what he is, what he went through.
Yep.
That he's a minister. He tried to build a church.
Right.
He was talking about how he had to make a decision and all that stuff. So I think on page 96 is where it's important that we talk a little bit more about. So
sure.
Ali talks about a moment where he was getting distraught because of the fact that people weren't coming to church and this wasn't working out and this and that and all that stuff. And he was talking about that. So he talks about how there were these 2 guys in the church dressed in black and had headphones on, like the guys we've been introduced to prior. And then he said that the choir went to go sing and nothing came out of their voice.
And even before then, the church bell that normally rings did not ring, or
did not ring.
It either didn't ring or it rang but no sound came out.
Right. So. And he said that all like surrounding sounds like birds and everything like that, he did not hear anything. So, and then he goes on and you go to what you said. You said on 97 you had something.
Sorry, I went back to 96.
No, sorry.
um, so Victor, so they were talking about why these men were trying to steal their music, um, and Victor asked, "What is it about music?" And Ollie's response was, "I think it's because we know real music. We know her power. I don't know how much you know, but because they also follow you, you must know something." And so Victor commented he referred to as a female, and he asked her why he referred to music as a female. And Ollie responds, "Only female can make you do something without force. Music make you agree with each other. When music play, no one think about politics, religion, race, or even right and wrong. Even we tune together before we play." So this is something that I've talked about a lot. That music does more religious stuff than religion does in some cases, because there's a lot of what music does for me anyways is it brings people together, and there's a lot of religion and beliefs out there that pull people apart. I think that music in some cases can be a better religion than religion itself.
Right. And we talked about it, I think, in the previous episode, that a lot of the religions too are doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Their beliefs are the same.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everything. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not trying to generalize. I'm just saying that the skeleton or the basics of every religion is very similar,
Yep.
right? There are variations, and
Mm-hmm.
there are ways that they get to the different points, and they may have different. Some may have more gods, and some may have just all that stuff. But
Right.
music, no matter
For those
what,
watching on YouTube, I'm going to fix CJ's camera because it's driving me nuts. So keep talking.
because you had that black line that's above it.
Yeah, and then the stuff at the bottom is driving me nuts too. So I'm going to fix that.
Wow.
Oh no.
Now, those that are listening to it, I'm getting dizzy because he keeps moving everything around, and now my head's getting really, really, really big.
Okay.
And I already have a big enough head that I don't need a bigger one. And I don't mean that egotistically. I mean that in the physical sense.
Okay.
I have trouble buying hats.
You might be a little bit bigger, but you fit better on the screen.
But like you said, music, no matter what style of music, it'll bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. We talked about heavy metal before, and we talked about classical. There's a connection there.
Yeah.
And you can easily have someone who's into heavy metal sit down with you and listen to classical music,
Mm-hmm.
and there's an appreciation there that you typically would, and you would connect on that level.
Yep.
You're always going to connect with somebody who listens to music.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't listen to the same music, you're still going to connect with that person.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Because there's a reason why.
Yep. Absolutely.
So moving down on that, they talk about, that's how Victor, they describe it where like each band member has a different instrument,
right,
and we tune to sound to make it sound good amongst everybody.
Yep.
So even as we are different instruments, we celebrate our differences even in that band.
Right.
And that's kind of what they were talking to.
Right. Ollie says the band always sounds better when everyone listens to each other, which I think is very important to note because we've always talked about listening.
Right.
And then Victor responds by saying, "That's right. We listen to each other, support each other, and take turns speaking. I don't even know what to play until I listen to what you play." And then that's when Ollie says, "Think about this. The band is better when all instruments are different."
Right. Exactly. Right. And then Victor says he was happy that they were together and that he was really his brother in music.
Right.
Which I think is a big thing too to acknowledge, because I think a lot of us, besides being friends, you build friendships through music.
Yeah.
And then they talk about something very interesting, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about this briefly in the previous episode because we knew this was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how when we tune to 440 hertz.
Yes.
Our A is 440.
Mm-hmm.
Back when Mozart was writing or composing or whatever you want to say,
mm-hmm.
it was 432.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently there was a group of people that changed this.
Right.
And I'm curious to know, like, where this, because we didn't really learn this.
No.
And I'm curious to know where this is and where we could find this information.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why this is brought up is why? Why did they change the frequency of the hertz to be a higher pitch?
Right.
And what I think is very interesting, though, is they make a comment about how, well, Mozart's been around for centuries, but now we're playing his music in the 440 pitch.
Mm-hmm.
We don't tune it to the 432.
Right.
But that's us. Are the other countries tuning it for 432?
I'm sure there are a few cultures that do, but
yeah,
for the most part, it's closer to 440.
It's globally, right? It's a global thing.
Yeah, it's close. I mean, like in Vienna's Philharmonic tunes like 444. I think the New York Philharmonic turns to 432. The idea being that the higher pitch has more energy, so it sounds more sizzle. Like the Boston Pops does even higher, I think, because it's just it gives that like little zing kind of a feel to it.
That would be some interesting information to find out and share out. Maybe we'll do a little research on that. Then they talk, and then they said Mozart is here for many hundred years. How long does music last today? And Victor goes, about 3 months.
Right.
I think that's hysterical because they both laugh about it.
But I mean, if you think about it, there's music that came after Mozart. So if it really did change after Mozart, like Beethoven came after Mozart-ish. So was he 440? His music's been around for a couple hundred years.
That's the question. Like,
Liszt has been around forever, like.
And it's funny, we've read this twice and we never did the research.
Yeah, I mean,
because you're just so used to it.
Right.
There's, and the book that he's talking about, they don't give a title of the book in the previous earlier. So it's not even like we can go out and find this book.
Yeah.
It's very interesting why it's changed, and they say it's like, is it for control? Is it for this? Is it for that? Is it for clarity?
And he said something. Where did he say it? Maybe they make our tuning frequency a little off to make our vibrations smaller, less powerful than in Mozart's time. So if you think about it, when they raise the pitch, right, the pitch is getting higher, so the vibrations are actually getting smaller, but they're also more intense.
Right.
So, you can think about it both ways, the higher frequencies travel further, but the bigger frequencies tend to hit you harder. Like the bass, like that's a bigger frequency.
And the higher the vibration, the more solid it becomes, because it gets to a point where there's no vibration.
Well, I don't agree with that.
No. I'm saying that more of a
because everything that vibrates always vibrates no matter what.
Right. I'm saying that more of a what's the word? I can't think of the word. But just because of the fact, like you said,
it becomes a solid object, I guess.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. Like the Flash. He vibrates fast enough he can go through things. Not Flash Gordon. But he is the ruler of the universe. So so and then he picks up a magazine for bass players. This is Ali from Victor's car. And Victor asks, the magazine? And he goes, no. And this is something that I highlighted, and you probably did the same. It's a paragraph.
This is the phrase I was looking for last week that I could not find.
What I'm about to read?
I think so.
The one where it says, I realized something in your land. Okay. So this is Ali speaking to Victor. I realized something. And now, mind you, Ali has an accent, so the way we're reading it is just the way it's written. So it sounds like a little bit like broken English, but that's just because he's... So it says, I realized something. In your land, musicians learn how to play first. Everything about how to play and what to play. In my tribe, we learn why to play.
Right. That's what I was trying to find last week. And for whatever reason, in my brain, it was a short little sentence. I was looking for short little sentences and I wasn't reading the words.
Right.
which is why I missed it, because I did go to this chapter to make sure it wasn't in this chapter. But that's what I was trying to get to last week, is that
Right.
in our country we learn what to play, and in Ali's country they learn why to play. I think that's if you like think about like Paul Simon, when he brought in those African groups to sing with him on stage, like there's a different feeling to that group,
Oh,
and
of
that it
course.
changed his music so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and it says, so to continue that paragraph, we must have good reason for why before we learn more. You see, anyone can play because everyone have music inside. But with the elders, which they talk about how he learned about his ministry and all that stuff, you must show your calling before they take you further. If they accept you, if music accept you, then you learn true power.
Right.
So they figured out that music was probably being targeted by these men in black with the headphones because music brings people together, and it brought them together.
Mm-hmm.
And further down, it states, well, hold on a second. I'll just make sure I have context to this. Ali says, music don't need your belief. She accepts everyone. People come to enjoy healing, fellowship, or only to experience. Everyone allowed to choose how to be. There are not many things that are like that. And
Yeah.
and that even like and this, it even goes to religion, because religion, you have to follow, and I'm going to put this with quotation marks in the air quotes, what their guidelines are essentially
Mm-hmm.
to be a part and to be considered a true person of that religion.
Right.
And like I said, it's not a mocking, it's just
No.
stating a fact and all that stuff. Like I have people that I have friends that hold their faith, and I respect that, and I think it's fantastic that they do that, especially in this day and age, which is, and I know I've said it before, which is hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
So but it's true. I can listen to a song and get something completely different out of it than you would.
Yep.
And we've had the same training. We've
Mm-hmm.
had very similar teachers.
Yep.
We've gone through very similar things and very similar experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to take completely different things out of it because of how we feel the music.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to think about like Victor's brothers, for example. Like like Reggie taught all of them, and if you listen to them perform, even though they've been playing together for their entire lives, each one of them is different.
Oh yeah.
When they play their stuff, like it's a different feel. Like Roy the drummer, I've heard do classical music and African music, and Reggie does like fusion jazz and like heavy metal. Like Victor's more funk oriented, but they all kind of do it, but they all do it differently. And I think that's
Right.
kind of the beauty of it.
And they bring it together when they perform.
Right.
Which is I know that's kind of what you were leaning towards.
Yeah.
It's not only do they do that outside of playing together,
Mm-hmm.
but when they play together,
Right.
That individuality in their
Mm-hmm.
music comes out, even though it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
and like so a couple of weeks ago we played the SMV album, a little bit of that, which was Stanley Clarke, Marcus Miller, and Victor Wooten. And if you really sit there and listen to the three bass players, like it is very obvious. Like once you know what one sounds like you can easily pick out who's playing what, and it's not just the sound of the bass; it's the style that they play in.
right.
And like and the tone, and like there's a whole feel that's different because they're different stylistically. Victor's got his style, and Marcus got his style, and then Stanley Clarke is very different. They're all three different, but they all play together. And listening to them talk about that whole thing, it's interesting because they, as musicians, all playing the same instrument, which sit in the same area, the very low end of the spectrum, it's very easy for them to play together and have it sound muddy, because when you get to that low end, things kind of bleed together and it sounds bad. But trying to figure out how to layer all of that and have someone play the top part, the middle part, the bottom part, and then cross the way they do is really, really well done.
Yes, absolutely.
The album is called Thunder, by the way. It's hard to find on Spotify. I don't think it's there. I don't think it was on Apple Music either.
It was hard to find on Apple Music too,
Yeah.
because it doesn't even
So
come up under a compilation for them.
yeah, you might even have to go to Discogs and find the actual album. I bought it
Get
years ago and ripped it
Yeah,
to my
nice.
collection, so I've got it.
That's awesome.
Although Rune won't open right now, so I can't listen to it.
uh, so they even compare it to sports, where sports brings people together, but
Hmm.
there's still a competition there because you have two sides of the
Right.
field.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that it's not a, I'm sure you've seen and we've all seen the true fights and
Hmm.
the friendly fights, but
Yeah.
unfortunately it is separated.
Yep.
And they say religion is similar, but music is freer than that.
Yep.
Um, this is what I liked, what Ali said. He goes, "In my small village, we have no religion. The elders say belief is individual. We share belief with each other, but I don't have to believe like you. Thinking, knowledge, experience, all the same, individual. Religion should be individual too."
Hmm.
Uh, and then Victor adds, like music, I don't have to choose only one style, do I?
Right.
Which is what we were just talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then Ali says, maybe music is my religion. Maybe love is my religion too. I kind of connect with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do too.
Hmm.
Based on I think that we lose sight of just kindness
Hmm.
in everything that we do.
Yep.
Like we're so quick to be upset or angered by somebody,
Right.
and we don't look at both sides. And I'm not saying it's an easy task. I mean, we both worked in retail. We both worked in different things, and we've both dealt with angry people. And
Hmm.
I know in the beginning it's hard because you like, why are you coming at me? But then we
Right.
also don't know what they're dealing with.
Hmm.
We
Right.
don't know why they're in front of us yelling.
Yep.
And until you figure that out, you may realize that there's a whole other issue going on.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that there are times that you just have a person there that's just you just they're just who they are. They're just
Right.
a mean bad person.
Hmm.
But generally, there is good in people,
Yep.
and we have a tendency to not look for it.
Right.
So, what more do you have moving forward
Um,
from this?
I wanted to comment on something, but I forget what it was. So, oh, I remember what it was. Um, it's a quote that we're going to get to later on in the book. Victor asked one of the characters in the book, and I'm not going to give it away, but he asks what religion you are, and he responds by saying, "If I have to choose one, I cannot answer that question." Which I think kind of what we're talking about.
And I when I heard that and read that the first time and listened to it,
Hmm.
like to hear it, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good because I kind of feel that there's bits and pieces of each religion that I'm kind of like, okay, I like that. I
Yeah.
like that. I don't like that. I don't like that, but I like this and I like
Hmm.
that. It's very, very interesting. They continue their conversation, and this I thought was the interesting. Victor states he likes the idea of people choosing their own beliefs.
Hmm.
And, you know, they said, what was it? He turned to me and whispered, but I don't care. Anyway, so Ali says there is a place beyond belief. And Victor says, what is that? In your language, it is called knowing,
Mm.
which really goes to what Michael was all about in the
Yep.
first book, is just
Hmm.
knowing.
Yep.
Like you already know it. It's just you need to formulate it based upon what
Right.
what you have in front of you. And he says we only believe what we don't truly know, like
Hmm.
monsters, ghosts, and things like that.
Right.
You know. And then the last thing Ali says, in all religion books I read, no master ever say what they believe. They only say what they know. When you
Hmm.
know, you don't believe. To know
Yep.
is the key. And then that brings us to what Did you read it earlier? The chapter, you know how it has the
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, that's what brings us to I no longer believed him.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was right.
Yep.
Where do we go from here?
I'm trying to figure out how do we get into this next part.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit, and then
Okay. Yeah.
maybe it'll
Yep.
help trigger for you.
Sure.
They talk a little bit more about like Victor talks about trying to figure out his words, and then he brings up Jonathan, as we know was his student at the beginning, and Ali asked if they took him, and Victor doesn't know if they did or not. He goes, "We must be careful, and they must stay together." He hopes that Jonathan's okay. He goes, "I don't know if Jonathan." Victor says, "I don't know if Jonathan saw him or not." Um, and then Ali said, "Asa, who is the elder that mentored him,
Mm-hmm.
she had a saying, and the saying was, never say what you not going to do because that is your first step to doing it."
Yep.
And it took me a moment to kind of like really let that sit in. Does
Mm-hmm.
that help you go into
Yep.
what you want to go into?
Yeah. So a little bit later on, they start talking about opposites. Um, and so Ali says, when you make a declaration or promise, life make it possible for you to prove yourself. And then later on, he says, this is the one that I like. A smart man called Einstein wrote about relativity. He said everything is moving relative to everything else. I see it as a principle of how opposites attract to each other. It is more than a theory. Every physical thing on this planet work by this principle. You see, you have to have some. You see, to have something, you must also have something else. To know the speed of something, you must also know the speed of something else. I think that's what Einstein was saying, and that leads into a little bit further on. He then says, "In this time, this existence, we live by opposites. We move ahead by pushing back. We jump up by pushing down. We use dirt to grow beautiful flower. You see, this is what I was talking about. It's much more than a theory." So, and if you think about, I brought up that too. You know how we use dirt to grow flowers, and the roots go down so that the tree can grow up, and you have
Right.
this ugly dirt which makes a beautiful flower, and it's all these opposites. And we would talk about the yin and yang and all that sort of stuff. These last two books, and I think it's so important. And then this is one that Victor did in a webinar that I saw during COVID, where it was around the time of the riots and all that stuff that was going on. Was it 2020, 2021, something like that?
Yeah.
Um, he was very quiet during this whole webinar, and at the very end, someone asked him, like, what are you thinking about? With all this negativity going on, and he responded with more or less this quote, which is what Ali says, but he says, "Opposites like a slingshot. The further you pull back, the further it shoots forward." That's what he said. He said we might be going down right now and going down fast, but what's going to happen is because of the law of opposites, we're going to shoot further, faster once we get around the corner.
Right. And not to bring politics into this, which is what we're doing, but there is that whole entire concept where if you follow politics, there is this ebb and flow. There is this
Mm-hmm.
we drop down and then we go back up, and we drop down and go back. And I'd like to think that every time we come back up learning and being better from what we were down at. And it's just like
Mm-hmm.
anything we do in life, like we're going to trip and fall,
Yep.
but what we need to do is pick ourselves back up and learn from that trip and fall versus I can't believe I tripped and fell. I can't move
Mm-hmm.
forward now. No, okay, why did I trip and fall? Oh, there was a rock in the middle of the road and I wasn't paying it. Like it's just
Right.
that idea. Yeah. And then
And all of this relates to that saying that you said earlier, that you never say what you're not going to do because that's the first step to
right,
doing it. Because that's
right,
an opposite right there, and a lot of people don't realize that's an opposite
right,
right there.
right. And further down,
Mm-hmm.
Ali states, "Here's the problem." And I think this is so, and it's amazing. This book was written in what year again?
I don't remember.
I think it was this one was like late 2000s.
That sounds right.
2021 is the copyright. So
Yeah, but
I'm
he wrote
like,
it before that.
yeah,
Um,
2020.
it was before then because I saw him in 2018 or 19, and when I
And the
saw him,
book was
he
out
said
already.
he just finished writing the book, and it
Okay.
was at
So
the
let's say
publisher being proofread
2000,
or
like
something.
late teens, whatever.
Yeah, it was around then.
I still think what Ollie says here is so important today. To be a good person in a good situation is too easy. Life knows that. So life give you a bad situation to be good in. Now this should make being good easier, but we focus on the bad situation too much. We lose focus of our original goal, like me and my church, talking about how he fell to that dark side.
Mm-hmm.
He let his dark side take over his purpose to be the light. And I think that's,
Yep.
I think right now we're dealing with that on a global scale.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm sure we could get into full conversations, and everybody has their own thoughts and process to it, and everybody has a right to their own opinion and all that stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
we're dealing with a lot of things globally that kind of plays to this.
Yep.
I mean, look at Maui,
Mm.
and what happened there and the
Right.
devastation there, and how everybody's like, well, he's sending money to the Ukraine, but he's not. Like, he was on board helping Maui. It's just that I don't think he's big on, I'm going to go talk to he's big on doing the things that he has to do. He doesn't need to be right out in front.
Right.
And this is not me putting down the previous president. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying this individual that we have as president is like, he's doing things.
Yeah.
It's just, he's not out there stating what's happening at that moment in time because he's
Right.
focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what's the thing? It's like they say, like, don't talk about what you're doing because like other people are gonna, I forget what it is.
I don't think it's this, but I remember there's just something that's written in on the whiteboard of one of our rooms. It says, "Are you talking about what you're doing, or are you doing what you're talking about?"
Right. Like that kind of
That
concept.
yeah.
Yeah, no. Because the more you talk about it and the more it's out there, the more people are going to be aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they may try to stop you from doing what you want to do or
Right.
interject things that take you away from it. Whereas,
Yep.
like, if you just do it, you're not going to get distracted.
Right. Right.
Right. And I think that if you generalize that's what's happening with the president. Like, yeah, he's helping the Ukraine because if he doesn't help the Ukraine, there's going to be a bigger issue
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to affect everybody globally.
Right.
But he is helping Maui. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, people are more focused on the Ukraine than they were on Maui at the time.
Right. Yep.
And for me, it was very difficult to see that because I did spend a week in that location
Mm-hmm.
back in the early 2000s, and that place was beautiful. And I was hoping to go back to it. So I just hope for whoever is down there, whoever's dealing with it, that we pray for recovery and
Yep.
and stronger,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just, it's nuts.
Yep.
So then, like you said, Victor brings up the yin and yang of the situation.
Yep. And I think to pull it back to a more philosophical thing,
yeah,
for a little bit further down, it says bad allows good to exist. There's so I'm trying to remember where I heard this. I think it was a random YouTube video that I found, and as I was doing research about awakening spirits, and there's a channel that talks to people who have near death experiences, and a lot of them have the same kind of story that they tell. That the reason that we are here on this earth is because that our spirit, when it's in spirit form, only experiences the good. It doesn't experience the bad. So that the reason that we have life here on earth is to experience hurt and death and pain. Otherwise, we wouldn't know that. So this is more of a learning experience for our souls, some people believe. But if you go back to the first book, when they're talking with Isis, one of the things that chapter talks about is space. And one of the quotes in that chapter is, if there were no space, all music that we're ever playing would still be playing.
right.
Because you can't have music couldn't stop. It would just keep going forever. So you have to have that. space in order to have music. That's the most important thing in some cases.
Right.
So,
right. So for those who are interested in all that stuff that Kyle just talked about, there are two things I highly recommend you go into and check out. One, Joshua Gates, Expedition Unknown, Afterlife. It's a 4-episode thing. It's so well done, and he does it. It's a very like he does paranormal research and stuff like that. But the way he handles the afterlife thing is so well done. Then there is an author out there called Mary Roach, who writes their fiction books, and there's one. It's called Spook, and it's about what happens to us after we die. And it talks about paranormal and everything, but it's a scientific approach to what happens to the consciousness. And between these two things, they talk about the studies that have been going on, beliefs. So it's very interesting. And I bring that up just because a lot of what you said is in that.
mm-hmm.
It's very, very interesting. So, and here's the creepy part. Have you ever read the book by what's his name? Oliver, the guy who wrote Awakenings. He wrote a book called Musicophilia. Why can't I remember the name of the guy? I'm going to try to find out. Musicophilia. It's a book written by, I love the author, Oliver Sacks, and he talks about music and the different experiences and how people are talented and how people learn it and how some people just know it and all that stuff. And he talks about, there's this one guy in the book he talks about who had a near-death experience and came back and was able to play music like he's played it for all his life. But prior to the near-death experience, he's never had that ability. I was watching the Afterlife series, those 4 episodes with Joshua Gates. And this was a few years after that guy was on the show. And it freaked me out. Like I got chills because I'm like, there's totally two different things. But it just goes to show you how there's just this. It's interesting. It's like a full circle thing. Yeah. So, yeah. See, we could get philosophical on here too.
We sure can.
So, moving forward on this, because there's not much left within this chapter. They talk about. Victor says, "What do opposites have to do with us?" And then Ollie says, "My teachers say when situations appear, though, it is always the result of something." So his mentor, it could be a result of something we asked for, maybe a desire we have or a statement we make. And he learned from his elders, when you have a problem, look for the opposite. There you may find the solution. And Victor says, well, right now, those men are our problem. Maybe so. But maybe what they want is the real problem. And Victor goes, they want our music. And he goes, but music is sick. No, music is dying. And then they talk about that. And the last thing, and I don't know if there's anything before that you have to say, but the last thing he says is that the back and forth they have is, Ali says, yes, my brother, I hear you, I feel you, and my eyes begin to see. And Victor goes, what do you mean? Life give us opportunity. Opportunity for what? To do what we say we want to do. And what is that? How can we save music if there is nothing to save her from?
Right. That's kind of what we were just talking about.
Yeah. I'm giving space. I was giving space for purpose. No, it's okay. No. Dramatic pause. Because I was in theater. No,
I'm going to cut it out in post. So.
No, don't cut it out. Leave it there. No. But it's funny because if you think about it, I'm still processing this book. I've read it and then I did the audiobook and I'm reading it again as I go through it, like the chapters prior to us recording. And I still try to piece together how he put this together and the representation of everything within the book. Yeah. It's very interesting. These men in black with the headphones are very interesting. I'm going to say creature because I don't know where he pulled this from. I mean, I have my theories, but just it's very smart.
Yeah.
With how he approaches the philosophy of this.
Yep.
Without going off onto these tangents where you're like, why am I reading this? Like, what's going on? Like, you want to know. So.
And Victor does get slapped in the book several times. Not by Will Smith.
That's right. How long have you been waiting to say that?
I don't know. You brought up Men in Black. I was like, we got to throw Men in Black jokes somehow. I was like,
they're called
Tommy
Men
Lee
in
Jones
Black
or doing Will Smith.
They're called Men in Black in the book.
That's true.
With headphones.
Yep.
Blinking lights. It's got to be the Beats headphones. I'm sure.
You know how you find Will Smith in the snow, right?
Are you going to have to cut this joke out?
No.
Oh,
no. You look for the Fresh Prince.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. For all those that have been listening to us each week, I'm sorry this has ended your journey with us after that. Actually, I want to thank everybody who's been listening the past few weeks. We really do appreciate it. Yes. We see the numbers, we see the downloads, and it's been great. And we thank you for joining us on this journey through this book. And please, any feedback you have, anything you want to share or say.
Yeah,
please.
If you like the jokes, let me know. I got plenty more.
No, tell him you don't like him so he doesn't have more. So, actually, I did a dad joke the other day, though. I was sitting at the table and I was talking about some pain that I was having in my legs. And I was asking about shingles, and my stepfather was saying how that they need to go get checked for it because of their age and everything like that. And he goes, I keep asking her about shingles. When are we going to do? What are we going to get? Because shingles. And I told my mom, I said, next time you ask him, I said, I don't want shingles. We have vinyl siding.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. Oh, yes. I was not kicked out of the house, but I stopped talking the rest of the
night. So on that note, let us say bid adieu.
A bid adieu.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, just
say goodnight. How about that?
Hit our Linktree link in the show notes. Check us out. We go live on Twitch Friday and Saturday. Friday at 8. Friday and Sundays. Friday at 8. Sundays at 7:30. We're on YouTube. We got Instagram. We got X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And I realize that our closing has to be updated because we say Twitter. But I'm going to leave it as Twitter right now because of the fact that no one really understands X. So, and we're on Discord, so come chat with us there. Send us an email. But all that stuff is in the Linktree. Go click on it. Check it out. And, thank you again for joining us today for this episode. And we look forward to the next one.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.